Hello and welcome to Extra Hours. Surprise, surprise to see Guy back in Seattle. We've got a few people here that you might recognize from the morning show. Alex is here from Northern California. Alex, you want to say hello to
Hello.
the group?
It's good to be here.
Hey, look.
You're in Seattle. I'm in Northern California. We're all back to where we belong. It's great.
Yeah, everybody's back. And actually, Nigel's not in Texas. So, Nigel, what's up with
No,
Orlando?
we have moved to Orlando. We have going back to Florida. I have wrestled my alligator to qualify for my Florida Man certificate, which is also works as a driving license. And we are enjoying. We are a long way, I have to tell you, from the theme parks. So if you're looking for a quick stay so you can get in the Velocicoaster, we're not close to that. We're actually in the old part of downtown Orlando.
The question,
Wow. Rod, I'll just hand the host back to you, just like
there you
that.
go. There you go. Thank
How's
you.
Australia?
Thank you, Guy. Well done. Yes, all very good. I just wanted to ask Nigel, have you got a golf cart as well? Have you got that all lined up?
No, we're living in an apartment on the 17th floor, so they generally look badly on people using golf carts down the corridor. But the people who live in these villages and the other sort of luxury places, that's where you'll find the golf carts.
I see. Well, very good. Thank you, Guy. The daylight saving messed me up a little bit, and so it's a trap sometimes. I knew it was coming, but if I don't put the right time zone in, and then I had a meeting that butted up right against this start, which otherwise I wouldn't have had that meeting because it would have changed with daylight saving. And then we go another hour again soon, like we shift as well, which pushes us 2 hours different. So I don't know. President Trump, bring on the stopping the daylight saving. I don't know that it'll happen though.
I'm for it.
Well, I'm for it.
I feel like of all the things we're doing right now, the one that I would really be behind is not behind most of the changes. Man, would I be behind that one? Be 100% like all in. So I don't care. People ask like, do you want daylight savings or standard? And I'm like, I don't care. Just stop changing. Like it's dark when I get up every morning. Like it doesn't matter to me. I just want to know, just don't make it different. That's all I care about.
I'm like, let's just go worldwide UTC. It's just everyone, right?
We used to do that.
The clocks are the same.
Pixelcore used to all of our meetings used to say Zulu. It was just this number Zulu, and everyone had to figure out where they belonged in that piece.
And of course, everyone would start having at least a clock that was set to that, and it just made it easy.
Well, you would just learn to do math, like there's a. I have subscribed to the theory that one of the key factors to the United States' success is the Imperial measurement system. I know that sounds crazy, but I think the Imperial measurement system requires Americans to do more math in their head at every day and I think that it improves our creativity and our ability to process things. I'm only half joking. Like I've really thought about this, and I've talked to a couple people, and I've read some articles about it. After I thought about it, driving at some point, I was like, I wonder, because we have to do fractions all the time. Like it's a constant, like knowing what 3/30 seconds is and one, and how it relates to 1/8 and everything else. There's an enormous amount of math that an American does that no one else does because they just have easy numbers that end at 0 and go to 100. It's all easy.
I have to say, if we're going to pick a time, the obvious thing is Greenwich Mean Time. Is where time started is where we should base the time.
Time started.
Well, it basically is
of all
UTC,
time,
right?
Yeah.
At the moment, I think it is. When I say UTC,
isn't Greenwich Mean Time always UTC? They just changed the name so that people didn't feel like it was so British.
It's important what you call things. So Greenwich Mean Time was the correct.
Very good. But what about Imperial and metric? You've been in the States now for some time, Nigel. Where do you come down on that?
So my first winter in America, I was living in New York, upstate New York, and I went into the office and I said, "Your local weatherman is an idiot," And they said, "Oh, how did you come to that conclusion?" I said, "He said it was 0 out and it's much colder." And they all looked at me and went, "Yeah, you haven't got back to Fahrenheit yet, have you?" So now when my family in England tells me what temperature it is, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. It's weird too, isn't it? That is it minus 40 or something that's the same in both, just to really mess with you. It actually gets to a point where it's the same. Someone will check that in the chat. It's one of those minus 30 or something.
They're both really cold.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Guy, we've got a couple of questions there. What's first?
First one's in from John Nichols in Concord, California. And John asks, I recently acquired a Sound Devices MixPre 10.2. Can I record to a USB drive using it? I assume so, but none of my USB drives are recognized. Multiple cables tried. Am I missing something?
Alex?
I don't think you can. So the USB-C, what the MixPre is designed to record to the SD card. And you can get pretty big SD cards. Like, I don't know how you would run out of space on a MixPre 10 with a 512 gig, that's a lot of space. Like I have a 128, I think, in this one, and it's got like 60 hours of storage or something like that. So the SD card is the internal recording for the sound devices. The USB-C is as an interface to a computer, but it's expecting an interface to a computer, or it'll take power. So you can power it by that through the USB-C, or you can connect it to a computer, but I do not believe that you can connect it to a drive. So I think that's the answer to that one.
Interesting. That's one of the cool things.
It was funny. I had to think about it for a little while because I was like, I've never done that before, because I've never thought about it. I've always, connected it to it. I was like, oh, I have to think about that, because with other,
I think for professionals, they don't want an extra dangling thing. These guys are running around with a bag and any other loose, especially the recording media. That is just dangerous for those guys.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because you could do things. There have been other situations with sound devices, like some of their video recorders, that you could record to an external drive. So it's a little confusing because like the Pix 260, I believe, will let you do that. Put an external drive to it, as well as having the SSD internally, and you can record to both or one or the other or whatever. So they've done it in the past, but I don't believe that you can do it with this recorder.
But a 960, you're not bagging that. That's meant to go on a cart or in a facility. But a MixPre 10.2 is bagged. That's a bag machine. It's 100%. Meant to go out in it's a field recorder. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
The Pix 260 could be a drinking game on office hours, right? Just every now and again, just pops up as a product that no longer exists. That it was but we wish it still existed.
I still have I still use my. I haven't been able to give up my Pix 240s. Like I have like 3 of them, and I'm like, there's no reason I need more than one. I still have one that I use, and I'm like, I shouldn't need more than one, but there are certain pieces of hardware that are like classics. Like they just were the perfect thing. The 840 AV, like the Apple 840 AV, was a perfect computer. It was just, it had all the things that you wanted at that moment, of course, at the moment that they came out. And I think that the Pix 240, I think Sound Devices has a pretty heavy hitting record there. The Pix 240, the 788, the USB Pre 2, these are all like, man, they just solved the Scorpio, of course, but that's like, now we're just throwing money at things. But I think that there are certain things that they're just classic designs,
So they just mustn't have sold very well, right?
I think that it had a lot to do with the competition from other companies. So Sound Devices was making a better product, but I think that most people couldn't distinguish. Most average users didn't understand why it was so important to have a video product that had all the audio routing and all the controls that you had with the Pix 240 and the Pix 260, but they were so powerful in the audio area. So you had a video recorder with just all these tools that were just amazing. And Atomos came out with something that was not as amazing, but good enough, and a lot of people bought it, and it became. I think it was very hard to
You know,
keep
it's
that market going.
plastic
Yeah, well, it
versus
wasn't just plastic
metal.
though. It's
These
just
things
the
are
yeah, exactly.
metal. This is the MixPre D. Look at that finish. You know, they just don't make them like this anymore. This is
Oh, the
like, I
MixPre
could
D. Now
throw
you're
this
getting
thing.
old. Now you're going
Yeah.
even further back than the USB Pre 2. Yeah, it's a
Look at this
those things are
thing though.
beasts.
Ballistic LEDs, responsive. You
Yeah,
could drop this, throw it. Look at the batteries are even waterproof. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
It-
Sound Devices knew how to make stuff. Knows how to make
from
stuff.
a video recorder point of view, I guess the video assists, like the
Mhm.
4Ks or whatever, that do have the little mini XLR, like it's getting close to it, right?
Yeah, but
Like
there's just so many things like for instance, well, number one is we use it for delay all the time. You know, so we use it as an embedder and a delay, and I've got XLR ins. I can do AES with 4 channels. I can record. We could record a computer output like when we're recording Hangouts. At one point, I had 10 or 12 of these things. We could record the HDMI on channels 1 and 2, and then we could record the analog channels on 3 and 4 and mix
That's
them
cool.
together. So if you're recording, you know, and those are all embedded and available, and you had control over every channel. I mean, it was a really profound piece of hardware that was really well designed. I will admit that the Pixie 5 and Pixie 7 were higher resolution, but they cut a couple corners that just were hard. You know, they had they didn't pass through 720 60. It was like this weird thing where they wouldn't do 720, it would do 720 30. And it was a weird problem. And they said, well, it's a format. I was like, yeah, but it's a format that nobody uses. Like nobody uses 720p 60. I mean 30. Like that doesn't when we send it to a SAT truck, when it goes through the PICs and it goes into a SAT truck, it just comes out as black. Like, you know, it's like this again, the tools in the SAT truck can't see it. So it may be a format sitting in a SMPTE paper, but it's not a format that anyone has in their hardware. But they did that, I'm sure, for some kind of processing overhead or whatever. And so they're still great. I still have one of those too. I have a Pixie 5. They put the Pixie 5s. The cool thing about those is that they had a little piece that popped onto the bottom, you know, that was the audio interface. So you could buy the audio interface separately, and it used the Cashmere, you know, preamps. And so you had this video recorder with insanely quiet preamps that were going into it. And so you could really record something at a really high quality. And again, they were solving problems that a lot of us were really excited about, but the average creator who was buying these couldn't hear the difference, didn't know the difference, didn't know them deeply. I mean, there's so many, and that's the case. It's the challenge for Sound Devices all the time is people knowing how to use their products, because the products are so deep. You know, they're so, you know, we would do things inside of our, we were doing stuff inside of the 788, and I still do stuff inside of the Scorpio that very few people were doing, you know, really detailed mix minus routing and lots of buses and lots of stuff. And there's a handful of people that do that. I'm sure Mickey does it, but there's almost nobody doing it. Every time we hired someone that was used to field recorders, we have to teach them how to use routing. Like they just didn't understand it. Like they didn't understand why a field mixer would do that.
Did you sell Sound Devices stuff?
oh yeah, I sold a lot of sound devices over the years. In fact, I was just thinking about a video that I have up on YouTube where I compare some of the when the MixPre 3, the 6, and the 10 first came out. I did a video and let you hear some of them and walk through the powering of them, because there was a lot of questions back in the early days as far as MP, Hiroshi, all these different ways that you can put it in a bag and have it be powered for X amount of time. And so yeah, I got to play with a lot of that stuff. In fact, man, the first shipment when it came in, I spent like $25,000 on Sound Devices and bought all my demo equipment. And man, talk about a kid in a candy store. I mean, imagine it's just all this Sound Devices equipment showing up at once. It was a lot of fun, and getting to talk to a lot of sound guys. I mean, I have a passion for sound, and getting to talk to these guys that were out there in the field just hustling. You know, it was always a joy to have them come in and let them hear certain mics like DPA versus Sheps versus Sankin. You know, it's so we do little shootouts in our studio and plug them into the various recorders and hear how they sound. And even things like the headphone preamps make a difference to some people, and the blimps and how they handle wind, and which Harry or softy do I want? Do I want just a slip-on foam softy, or do I want a full-on blimp? I have one right here. I'm looking at it. I want to grab it, but I know that if I grab it, it's one of those things where it's like ding, ding, and 5 other things are going to fall. I don't want to be like Alex and spill my tea all over my keyboard.
Exactly.
Just keep the knife in, Guy. Just keep the knife in. Yeah, don't take it out.
I got to grab it now.
He's going to do it. Do you know? Oh, nice.
Hey. There you go.
That's cool. Do you know what would have happened had you have pulled out some, main internet cable or something? Then you would have gone out. But then I've got your demo Zoom meeting going in the background here. I was doing a little test before, and that would go down as well.
I could see that you're in there. That machine's on a 42-inch display, so I could see your name inside of that room right there.
Nice. It's good that we've got multiple ins and outs going from Adelaide to Seattle. It's good that that's happening.
For those that don't know what we're talking about, that was there's 8 copies of Mimo Live running on a Mac Studio Ultra, and we use it to, there it is. We use it to just put some sources out so people can go in and test 2-ups and 3-ups and 4-ups, and seems to be working pretty well. We've had it running since May, and I don't think we've had very many down days except for when the power goes out for an extended amount of time. It's got a UPS on it, and I got a generator and redundant internet, so it's running. It's been running.
It's actually the first time that I've played around with it with Zoom ISO, and so I've got that going into a 2ME switcher and just playing around, and it was. What's the next question there, Guy?
Next one's coming in from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada, and he asks, what does the panel think of alleged backdoor in the ESP32 radio chip that is in millions of devices for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? Bonus discussion topic is this type of vulnerability leading Apple to make more of its own chips.
Alex?
Yeah, I don't think that it's a real push for why Apple's doing what it's doing. I mean, I think that it contributes to the many advantages that Apple has of building its own chips and allowing it to, do a lot of the handshakes itself. I think Apple, there's been some comments where it appears that Apple really views every extra chip that they put on their computer that isn't part of the big chip that is now their unified memory and CPU architecture and GPU architecture as legacy. They've said that in the past, like legacy, silicon is, I think, what Tim Cook has said in the past. So I think Apple envisions some future where you buy a phone and when you open it up, it's just a piece of slab, like here's the processor that does all the things. And from an energy perspective, from a control perspective, from a flexibility perspective, there's just massive advantages for Apple to, keep building in that direction. They're the only part of it is they're the only company that can do it. It will have speed advantages. It will power, consumption. Again, they can reprogram things in a way that no one else can, and just lets them continue to innovate at a speed that no one else can innovate at. So I think that's their primary driver to build their own, most of their own stuff, and they don't want to. They don't want to keep paying someone else to do it, and so there's no reason to do that because they have the capabilities to do it themselves. But I think it has less to do about the money per, device or anything else, and more about just complete control and the ability to out innovate, run it at a higher innovation speed. The problem that Android and Windows and all these other things have is there's a whole bunch of people that have to negotiate. Well, they're going to build this hardware, and now I have to talk about the software, and I have to do this, and there's different hardware manufacturers that all have to talk to each other, and different coordinations between the software and the hardware, and that takes time to do well. And usually, it's a compromise. It's a series of compromises between all of them to get to what you want. Now, there is an advantage when you're a smaller company that you don't have to figure out all the things. But Apple's a big enough company that they can figure out all the things. Like they can build any team of any size that's necessary for them to figure it out. Now, some things like modems have turned out to be very hard, and it's taken Apple a long time to build those out. But I think what you're going to see is Apple eventually, they're striking all of their own silicon for everything. Like there's not going to be any, I think Apple, 10 years from now probably has almost nothing, that's sourced from another manufacturer except maybe the screens.
It's going to have like a little nuclear reactor in it as well. And then now it's just
fusion. It's going to be fusion.
Yeah.
It's not
never have to charge it.
Yeah, exactly. You just shake it every once in a while, and it just keeps going.
Nigel, it's your take.
Yeah, I wondered whether the phrase backdoor was not a good phrase. I mean, when I hear backdoor, I assume someone's given somebody a key, particularly security services, to get in and see things going on. To me, what this was about was undocumented calls that in every device and every manufacturer, it's like the old cheat codes when we used to play games, and if you use the handheld device with 37 up and down and right and left, you get infinite lives in God mode. Undocumented calls have been a part of processors, operating systems, computers, almost since day one. And Apple's going to have undocumented calls in everything they do as well, because you have to for diagnostics, you have to for managing the stuff. And so I've found the story to be one of, unless I misunderstood it, which is very probable, to be one of those, we used the word backdoor and then we got all excited and then we claimed the, proximity to the end of the world, where it was just undocumented calls and somebody found them and decided to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of what I read as well, as far as the term backdoor was inappropriately used. Incidentally, if we had show titles for this podcast, I think Bluetooth God Mode would be a good one, or Bluetooth Infinity Lives. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what you could do on your phone.
I think that one of the things is a lot of these things are hard to really propagate. So if we look at even like a USB, Stuxnet was a USB attack, and we really thought that every USB device was going to be, compromised after Stuxnet got out, because Stuxnet was something that the Israelis and the Americans, we think, wrote a very specific hack that went into a USB key but sat in the BIOS of USB. And when it was plugged in an Iranian nuclear facility, nuclear refinement facility, it caused everything to spin up, and it destroyed, years of work, decades of work. But it was a virus that was sitting in it wasn't in the USB key, it was in the BIOS of the USB key, and it was very elegant. And that's why and everyone, then it got out and everyone thought, well, this is it. Like, we're never going to be able to use a USB again. And it just nothing happened. Like nothing major happened from there, because it was really hard to propagate, and it was really hard. It took a lot to get that done. So I think that in the same case, probably not going to see, Americans are willing to give up so much more data. People around the world are willing to go so much more data for free. Like, you don't need to do hacking to get most of the data. So it you don't have to work as hard as this to compromise somebody's security.
Yeah. Next question.
Next one in from Vic Hernandez, Springfield, Missouri. And he asks, as an audience member, outside venues like Red Rocks and the Hollywood Bowl can be an important part of a memorable experience. What extra production challenges do they present?
Nigel.
Well, there are better people here than me on maybe the production side of this. I was going to talk about this from an audience member side. So I lived in Colorado for a while, so I don't know if that's the Red Rocks we're talking about here, but I always remember Red Rocks was a great experience. It was lovely to get to. As the sun set, it was a great experience. It was a great concert venue. And then you left the venue and you had a 50% chance of making it back to your car alive, and not falling down a mountain, because there was no light, there was no signs. People drove crazy because they'd been drinking. So I always thought it was a great example where the sort of the production and even the front of the house abdicated all responsibility at the door. So often, to me, that, you know, what I look for in a well-rounded thing is when there's, you know, the backstage and the front stage and the front of house and the venue, and all of that is synchronized. And actually, the best example I've seen of that was in Austin City Limits, which you know, is an amazing outdoor concert that runs 4 or 5 stages simultaneously, although they stagger the 2 big stages at the other end of the field. And now you've got, you know, the production managing the stages, you've got the production managing the sound around the venue, you've got the production managing everything about it. And maybe the best example of that to me was the year that Tom Petty died. ACL, I think it was either 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, every stage went silent, every stage went dark, and every speaker in the whole place played Free Falling. And that was a great example of a venue, the front of house, the back of the house, really integrated into a single body and working as one.
Alex?
Outdoor is a nightmare. Like it's like I regularly try to avoid production outside. I will admit I do not like it. I do not enjoy it. There's nothing about it that I think is fun. You know, there is dirt. There's dirt everywhere, dirt in your connector, especially if you're running fiber. You're constantly worried about it. I mean, you clean your stuff all the time, but there's really like a lot of stuff to clean. You're going to have to take all your cables back. I mean, I've done a lot of outdoor stuff, so I'm not saying I don't do it, but you take all your cables back, and there's going to be a day or two of you carefully cleaning all your connectors, all your cables. I try to do, one of the big things is just the amount of damage that humidity and dirt and everything else does to your equipment. A lot of times we really try to go inside of an enclosed system. So we want to build inside of at least inside of like one of those portable offices, or we have a trailer that we go out with, or if we, or a tent. Craig Kadoki pointed out, we want to be in a tent. We were I've told this story many times, so Grant has already heard this one, but I demanded a tent in Vegas, and they made fun of me because I was asking for a tent in Vegas, and the water storm wiped out everything except for my tent. So we're a handful of us that had tents. And so there's rain, there's the risk of rain, there is lightning and the risk of lightning. I've had an issue where we were literally 20,000 people for an outdoor projection, and we're counting the seconds between lightning strike and thunder. And we had decided that the number was 12. If it gets below 12, we have to cancel the event. It's about 2 miles away. And it came down to 13. Like it went from 20 down to 13 and then back up at 14, 15, 16 and moved away. But those are the kind of things that you have, safety is just such a massive concern when you're outside. There's so many things can go wrong. During the day, there's heat stroke and there's sunburn, and sunburn is not a minor thing. You go to one of these things where someone goes out and they didn't put any sunscreen on it, and they hang out on a summer day from 9 a.m. until 3, and they end up in the health ward, with really bad burns. They can, and so these are all things that come up. And then in addition to all of this, the sound stinks. Like it's, if you're doing a concert, I mean, even in somewhere like the Hollywood Bowl or Red Rocks or whatever, I've seen a couple shows at Red Rocks, which is beautiful, but you don't go there for the sound. I mean, it's reflecting off the rocks. There's wind. There's all kinds. The air is a fluid, right? So, sound is getting moved around by it and everything else. So it's not a particularly. I don't find outdoor events particularly enjoyable to go to, and definitely not enjoyable to run. I prefer my stuff to be a little bit more pristine. So I have to admit that's now, as a casual, I'm going to go and have beers and kind of watch something up on screen. It's a lot of fun. Like I have a good time. So if it's like there's a festival that hasn't happened for years. Yeah. I mean, if you don't really care and you're just there mostly to drink and talk and hang out, then outdoor events I think are really great. There's used to be one in Zimbabwe in Harare called the Harare International Festival for the Arts, and it was all outdoor, but there was like barbecue and people were talking and there's bands playing in the background, and it was great, but that wasn't but that was about the most that I enjoyed there.
Guy?
Yeah, I just came from Florida, where I got to spend 10 days shooting outdoors with our very own Jeff Keithley. This was a tennis event, and it was all those. It was extreme heat. I was a camera operator, and out in that 80-degree weather, thankfully, I put on lots of sunscreen, had my little hat on, and I go to the sauna almost every day, so I'm baking myself at 150 to 170 degrees. I don't know how many other people could have handled this, but the clouds would also change the lighting very dramatically, very quickly. So we had a shader that was in the truck, and they were able to quickly bring up the exposure for the other guys. I wound up being wireless. My rig looked like, let me pull it up here. Is that going to go?
Double tap.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so that was the rig. And one of the things that we had there is that little Ethernet cable going in there, and that allowed a shader to shade this particular Panasonic camera. You can see we had the DJI wireless on the back, and that's how I was transmitting my signal. This was like 20 something pounds. I had a wireless tally on there. I wound up being faster to do my own ND, or excuse me, my own iris control. Otherwise, he would have been controlling my iris, but because of the way that the system was set up, I did focus, iris, and zoom all at the same time while doing these shots. And we did get rain, and it was kind of dramatic, because I had never seen a show like this where we're outdoors. And let me see if I could find this picture. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, that's
a boardroom.
That's a boardroom. Let me see if I could find.
Yeah.
There's another shot. Anyways, the guys came out. That's what the court looked like. They came out, and they had these machines. You could see one in the back here. They had these blowers that cleaned up and blew the water off. We were pretty quick to put the what do you call them? The barbecue covers, we called them. So they're just like Home Depot barbecue covers over these large broadcast cameras, large lenses, and Mark Roberts heads. So when it started dumping, and I saw my, well, it was rented, it's not mine, but we had that $2,500 DJI. I was like, oh, that's getting wet, garbage bag. So luckily I had 5 garbage bags. I just started garbage bagging all this stuff. And there was the other guys with the barbecue cover things. And luckily we were able to get away with not anything getting overly wet. We were prepared, but they had seen this. They had done this show for like 5 years. So they knew it was going to happen, but I was the new guy, and I was like, whoa, rain. Like, all right, cover up. And then we dried it all out, and the show went on, 40 minutes later, and we were back on, we were on air the whole time. So we had to kind of dance. It was funny, the director's in the truck having to dance through this whole thing, because we're live out to the world, and we just got to keep cutting around. So the show went on. But the other things, the generators. So when you're outdoors in venues like that, we had some issues with the generator, where one of the we had like 3 different generator issues. It was crazy. But so that's some of the things that you run into: the dust, the weather, the heat, the generators, and then the ever-changing light. There's just so much that could go wrong. If you, like Alex says, if you can go indoors or bring your own stuff and be prepared, because Jeff was definitely prepared. He's got 2 AC units, all his stuff's all rack mounted. Even the unit that we're using for it was like a Pelican with holes drilled into it for the PEP link, and a router inside of there to run Dante and SDI. It was all weather sealed and ready. He was prepared for this stuff. Obviously, he's done this kind of show before. But I'd imagine there were some painful lessons learned at the beginning. He didn't get to where he's at. But this ain't his first rodeo, as you'd say. It's just as he says, going live is just another day that ends in Y. So he's used to these kind of outdoor events. In fact, he went after I flew back to California. He continued on to Sebring and did another event that was a racing event that was really cool. And they had 2 drones up in the air. I think he talked about it in one of the previous episodes, that I can imagine, the wind, the rain, all that stuff going on up there where you've got cars, and it can be extreme. You're signing up for definitely some challenging times. You got to be able to roll with the punches for sure. And that's one of the guys, who's on your team when they're ready for this stuff, how they handle themselves during these kind of events.
Yeah, I've worked on a few festivals and just never really liked it. It was always great once the show was on, but when it's like just a field, an empty field, and you bring in everything, it's just hard. That's a hard grind to make all that happen. And then the show itself tends to be all these things. Everything's temporary, so of course, no permanent structures or anything. So, but there's a place in Melbourne, Australia, which is not that. Hang on, there we go. And it's what? Oh, that's right. Sorry, too many buttons. It's called the Sydney Maya Music Bowl, which Sydney, as in, is the name of a person, Sidney. So it confuses lots of people that it's in Melbourne and not in Sydney. But this is the Maya Music Bowl, and it doesn't look all that impressive there. But then you sort of see when they do shows, it looks pretty cool. And they do a Christmas, it's called Carols by Candlelight. So there's people holding candles there. So they do a Christmas show there, which is sort of huge. And I've been to it a couple of times, and you get this sense that the further you are under the bowl or the roofing structure, it's probably not too bad. But surprisingly, the sound can still be like, you get a lot of wind that just blows in all those mics and makes a terrible noise, but you can make them look pretty cool. You can, like, lighting, I think, doesn't make much difference. You can do that anywhere and it looks great, but sound is a challenge. And then all the elements that you get. So anyway, that's
now I will say that the one that was kind of cool was we did I think this is a night shot of this. It's hard to see. It's not going to really go over very well.
It looks amazing.
I know. This is that's my breakfast. Hold on. This is in Cambodia. But we did
it's always dangerous just opening photos, isn't it, when you got the 50,000 photos.
I'm a pretty boring guy. So, but this is us setting up for this is outside. So that's a blow up projector, which we actually built 5.1 for. So this is a 30 by 30 or 30 foot diagonal blow up
screen, not a blow up projector.
Not a blow up projector. Where's our pizza? And we had two. Let's see somewhere. Oh, that's Angelina Jolie. There they go. This is the one of the two projector. We had two full on Barcos 4K 25s that were there, which was, I don't know what I was thinking when I said that was a good idea. It's us like getting the thing ready to go. And the problem really was with this focus. Of course, we were talking about wind. It's a screen outside.
The screen moves.
Up. So it would bend in and out. So parts were in focus and parts were out of focus. And we were just like, and when you're watching it, you're just like, what was I thinking? Why did I think this was going to be a good? There's a close up of those big old, it's so this is in Elephant Terrace. That was like right next door, but Elephant Terrace in Angkor Wat. So, I mean, once you got there, it was just a screen, but it was, but that was the one outdoor one. I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool idea. Of course, later we did one in Battambang where it was 118 degrees and we couldn't turn the projectors on till 6, and it was rain, and that was the one where we had the lightning and wind and things. And I thought that I was really close to having an Altamont experience. Like I thought, like, I don't know if everyone's going to survive tonight. And so that's the last outdoor event I've done. Now I don't, I'm like, how about we not do that again?
Do you think that a moving screen like that is the equivalent of a virtual background on Zoom, where it's just like every now and again it's just like going in and out of focus.
It's a lot like that.
Oh, what's happening?
You're like, yeah, he's got an edge. He doesn't have an edge. He got an edge. Yeah, exactly. It's very, very similar.
And of course, 1F Jeff in the chat says, "Give me the outside world any day of the week."
You got it, man.
Very nice.
It's all
Jeff.
you.
I'm glad you can have it. Yeah, you're welcome to it. Next question.
Next one is in from our friend Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, "What does everyone think of the Rodecaster video? I've heard a lot of good things about it, and one thing that makes it appealing is the lack of the Atem crush issue on its USB output."
Alex.
It's really pretty innovative. I mean, what they've done with audio, I mean, they have real audio inputs. They've got a lot of really great, kind of combination of things that they have there. The Atem crush doesn't really matter because Zoom fixed it, and no one does. I mean, no one I know does any production on the other platforms. And so if it gets crushed for Teams or whatever, it's like, whatever. Like Teams is already, the video quality is already pretty trashy, so it's not gonna, like, it's 720 for everybody. So it's not like it, I don't think that Teams or Meet are really a production platform I mean, there's a lot of people that use Zoom for everything, people that you wouldn't expect. So I don't think the Atem crush is that big of a deal because it doesn't exist in the main production platform if you're using WebRTC. If you take the baseband outputs or the HDMI outputs, that doesn't really exist. The big problem is the ecosystem and the software for the Atem makes it very hard to, like, I look at the Rodecaster video and I go, oh, that's really cool if I was an island by myself. But if I plan to ever do anything bigger than this, or plan to integrate with anything else, or need the software to, be controllable, or need something like Mix Effect, or need other things like that, there's so much, the ecosystem around the Atems is so deep that it's really hard for me to ever really consider the Rodecaster I mean, if you're a creator and you're by yourself, maybe, but if you ever think that you're going to do something bigger, it's probably not the solution.
Yeah, Blue bought one when it came out and uses it as his daily driver now, and really quite likes it. And there is a few nice little features in it that has like some presets that are pretty good with like super sources presets that are really easy to recall. And so, to your point, Alex, someone that is not in this industry and knows how to build it all out and all that, and build it into a bigger infrastructure, having something that you can just plug a camera in, plug a really nice microphone into for a home setup for meetings, and you want to have another camera, over the shoulder camera or something like that, it's a pretty compelling option. And I have seen that there is Companion, like the API is good on it, and Companion has plugins for it and things to kind of integrate it with a Stream Deck or things like that. So yeah, it is compelling. I guess, I mean, I'm Blackmagic all the way, but yeah,
I do find myself really wanting to have somebody make, and maybe it's not Blackmagic or Rodecasters, but just a box, like the old switcher boxes, and then we have a configurable interface, like what Mimo does with with what Oliver does with the interface is so addicting. But just having a box that just does the thing, and it's FPGA, not a just like an FPGA. It's got a bunch of stuff on the outside. It's not very expensive because you don't have to spend all the money on the buttons, and then it has, then I can just configure an interface, for it. Maybe it has some simple buttons, but almost everything else is gone. Like I still have all these buttons on my Atem Mini Extreme, and I just don't use almost any of them. I just wish the ones that I use, like the macros and the keys and the bus selects, like I wish those were big. And like the stuff for my gain and black and like all the stuff of like pretty much all 12 buttons above every main select not useful.
No.
Not useful for me. And so so all of that could go away, and you could have a much simpler interface. But more importantly, after I started using Mimo's interface and being able to design it, I just kind of want that for my Atem. Like, I just really want to be able to drag and drop a bunch of controls. And I feel like there's one of two ways to go. Either Oliver digs deeper into the BIOS and figures all the stuff out that Atem figured out and just takes his interface design and applies it to the Atem, or Atem builds a configurable interface for all the stuff that he knows about how to do with the Atem, or Blackmagic figures it out. Like figures out what to that they could build these kind of configurable interfaces. But it lowers the cognitive load so dramatically when you're not looking at a board. Like when you're doing a show, the same show all the time, like when I'm doing a podcast or whatever, and being able to just have big buttons and have them be macros. Like every button is a collection of actions that do all the things I need to do. It's really useful.
Yeah. One day. And then an XLR.
And here's the thing is that Jeff's right. He said, you could use central control and its web designer module. Yes. It's just geeky, and I have to figure it out. Like, I just want to be able to drag and drop buttons in that are already designed for the Atem, that dig all the way through. The problem is Atem has access because he Wireshark the whole thing. He has way more control over the Atem than anything that just uses the SDK. So he's the only one in the world that has that, like, other than Blackmagic, which is why Blackmagic was upset when he did it. So he is the only one that can do that. And so just grabbing these things won't get me what Atem can do. And I just want an interface. I don't want to figure out the configuration. I don't want to figure out any of those things when I'm working. And I think that there are over 1 million Atem owners, and a very tiny percentage want to figure this out. They just want to drag boxes in, tell it what the box is, like the way, and Mimo does that. Mimo does it so well. Like Oliver does it so well, where I can define a couple actions or a thing and I just drag it in and figure it out. But it doesn't require any, it's all integrated, and I don't have to figure out how to wire it. I'm using TouchOSC to do it right now. So it's not but it's talking to MixEffect. So I'm using TouchOSC to talk to MixEffect to do that at the moment. But as I work on it, it's just a lot more work than it would be if it was all integrated into a system.
Yeah. I think there is a place where having that box that you're talking about, having that off somewhere else, and then a remote, like it's cabled, right? But like a Stream Deck or something that just is the buttons. And now I don't have to have all my cables plugged into the back of the box, but that can be under the desk or whatever. And now I've just got nice little control, and then I can just simply say what I want those buttons to do. But
I find that I want the buttons to be a certain size. I have 4 Stream Decks on my desk, so it's not like I don't use Stream Decks. But what I really want is an iPad interface, because the iPad is more pleasurable to tap on, and I feel more confident when it reacts than the Stream Deck buttons. And so I just don't like the Stream Deck buttons. I think if they, so I use them because there's nothing else out there anywhere near the price point, but I complain about them constantly. And I love, and the thing is that I didn't know how much I would love it until I was building these things with Mimo, where I just tap on the screen, and for some reason it just feels like it works better. It's more fluid.
Yeah. I mean, I've said before, and I just this weekend I was away mixing the acapella band again and using Mixing Station on an iPad. It's just a great experience, particularly because I can customize the entire interface. And I've got nice big long faders, and I've got, shortcut buttons to things that I want to see, and I can, I adjust. I don't have to change screens at all. Everything is just in one screen. And so I wouldn't go, I've said, before, I wouldn't now go and use a console again, because I've now done 130 shows or something on the iPad, and so it's all muscle memory, and I can walk around. I never really have a spot. There's generally always a seat that I can sit in on the end of an aisle or something, and now I'm in a great spot and mix the whole show. So I'm down with an iPad interface. It works great. Next question.
Next one in, Vic Hernandez, Springfield, Missouri, asks, Alex, is the black and white headshot of you in today's email your profile pic from Pixel Core?
Alex.
It's not. There's an older one that shows up every once in a while on some other things that are me over a white background, and that's the Pixel one. So it's funny. The reason that came up was that the in Pixel Core, like we just asked for your name in office hours if you join Discord. In Pixel Core, you were given a tutorial on how to do your headshot, a very specific way. And if you didn't do it that way, no one would respond to you. Like literally no one, like culturally, no one would talk to you in V Bulletin. You'd post stuff and people, all they'd say is, hey, you need to update your profile. You need to update your profile. It was just like this. They just get hit until you finally built your profile picture. And there was a Photoshop, there was a little video on how to do it. And what's funny is you go to some companies and you'll see on people's ID badges, you'll still see the Pixel Core one. And usually if I'm in a company, someone will bring it up and show it to me. They're like, hey, it's good to see you here, and they'll be like their little profile picture is still that picture. So, but that's not the one I'm using now. Is my sister took it of me a couple years ago, or maybe a decade ago, and it just became my, if someone asked me for a headshot, we're going to try to get them all so that they're screen captures of us rather than those pictures. And so I think what happened was the one that was given to me when we started to do this thing was not something I particularly liked. And so I was like, here, use this one. And then I have to go back and actually shoot one.
Next question.
Next one in from Talaloc Lopez Waterman in Roanoke, Virginia. He asks, why did Apple stop grounding their laptop chargers? Bad of audio for everything. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah. Alex?
Very few people used the grounded version. Like that was really the problem is that people were taking the cables off, because the only time you got grounded is when, so the way that the old charger worked is that if you pull it apart, if you pull the wire off, you'll see that it's just a figure eight. So it's like a C8 or C7 or whatever. So it's just a figure eight that goes in, and then it has a base that grounds it, right? It's got a little circular thing that slides on. So only if you use the cable, and a very large number of people, I admit, including me, generally took the cable off and just used the plugs. Now, and the reason for that was just that it was smaller and the cable took up space, and it was and so, but the usage was so low that Apple, I think, got rid of it.
Well, it's like all the accessories tended to get less and less and less each time. I remember I got I think it was the second generation iPod, and it came with like a nice case and a dock and a cable and a charger, like all these extra features, all these extra accessories. And then slowly it was like, now it's just the iPad. And same with the phone, but same with the laptop chargers as well.
Well, and I don't even use the
cable. You don't need it.
And I don't even use now with the new MacBook Pro, I got one for our Michael Krasny show. I will use the power that's there, but on all my computers up until then, if it's got a USB-C, I'm going to use something that's integrating it with lots of other USB-C. I'm not going to take one whole brick for one device. That's just crazy talk.
Yeah, I do use the cable. I went and got an old cable off of an old Apple charger, and I put it on my new MacBook, and because I like it, it's extra long. And
does
it
also work? So it still has
pressure.
the ground on it. It just doesn't ship with it.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go, Tlaloc. You can still do it.
Yep. You just you just need the cable. So
that's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Next one in from Ian Morrish in Wellington, New Zealand. He asks, Micro Studio G2 or Pocket 4K to replace the original Micro Studio for fixed position, maybe adding a teleprompter, Teams/Zoom use connected to Atem Mini Pro, looking for best low light and remote control.
Alex?
The G2 and the Pocket 4K will be close. I think the new G2 might have slightly better lower than the Pocket 4K. The Pocket 6K will have better low light than the Micro Studio, I think. I believe that's how that'll kind of work out there if you're looking for low light. If you're never going to use it, with the G2s, I think putting it in the back, I mean, I would lean more personally towards getting a 6K and getting that Super 35 sensor to put back there. It's just a lot easier to blur out your background.
Fair enough. Oh, Guy, I thought you were going to. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
go, Guy.
Yeah, you tell me when to go and I'll go. The micro four third inch lenses, if you already have a bunch of those, then in that same lineup, I'd also be looking at the Panasonic BGH1 if you want remote control capability, just because there is so much more control of that camera than any of the Blackmagic. So you have an interface that you can get into and you can make changes to almost everything. Same with the Z-Cam. It has a really robust back end to be able to modify. And then there is the the SH1 if you want to go to the larger sensor and have that form factor, but now you're into the EF mount lenses. So it just depends on budget and your lens arsenal that you already have and how low light is low light and what is that worth.
And I will say that the big thing is the Sonys are really nice for autofocus. And you can open, because their autofocus is so good, you can really run them at a very you can run them wide open and you're not worried about it. It's just it's gonna keep your face in focus. And as a webcam, as like a luxurious webcam, my go-to is Sony's at this point. I'm using an FX30 right now. I know some folks that in office hours are using FX3s, which is just pure luxury. But I think the Sonys just look amazing, for what they are. And it's just the problem that I had with the Blackmagics is that there was a lot of this going back and forth all the time, trying to make sure I kept on sitting in focus, and that made me a little crazy.
Just try to hold your hand there and then adjust.
Yeah, exactly. And now you just walk over and like, I don't know. I mean, if I put something up here like this, it's going to go in. If it's going to go like that, like I don't think about it at all. It's completely invisible to me now.
Nigel, what have you've got a Sony now, don't you?
I have. I've gone to I have my A7 IV, which I use for still photography, and I locked that into. I had a Blackmagic, I had the 6K Pro, I liked it a lot, but I really wasn't getting the benefit from it. So I found someone who wanted to buy a 6K Pro off me, and I now use the Sony, and it's made life a lot easier. I don't have to grade it all the time. It just works flawlessly, and it's easy to take off the stand when we go out and photograph.
Yeah. And Ian said that his budget's $1,000 and he already has the lenses. Inside of that box, I would probably get the Blackmagic Micro G2. Inside of less than $1,000, you already have the lenses. I would say I probably would lean towards just getting the Micro G2.
Fair enough. Last question for today, Guy.
Cindy Drozda, Erie, Colorado asks, "Hi, I'm interested in making QR codes with shortened links and an easy to understand URL. I understand that Rebrandly allows for changing the destination URL. How do you use Rebrandly, and would you recommend it?"
Yeah, so I've used Rebrandly for probably 6 years or something now, and I really like it. I liked it even more when it was cheaper. And they started adding a few charges. So for example, you're talking about changing. So in my company, I never send just a Zoom link out that is going to a group of people. I'll send a Rebrandly link. So it uses my custom domain name, and I can put whatever I want as the link afterwards. I can create QR codes. They're all there. You can create QR codes with little logos in the middle of it. So Rebrandly is very good for all of that. And the fact that you could just change the destination at any point, which is really handy if you've got multiple Zoom accounts and things like that. And I love that. They just have limited how many changes you can make per link. And then you pay an add-on to make more changes. So that was not well received, but I still am using Rebrandly and do really like it. Thankfully, I don't have to change a destination often, and so having a few changes is fine. But Alex, what do you do?
I'm a little more manual. So what I do is I have this is QR pop, which is what I use here. So if and this is so I buy a URL. So I just buy the URL that I want. If you're going to do a show regularly, and to be honest, I buy them just for regular one-off shows because I just go, well, it's $8 or it's $12 or whatever. I'm just going to buy the URL. And what I wanted to do is I want it to be very easy for you to remember it. I can use it. It costs me very little to buy one. If I don't use it for a year, I let it go away, or in some cases I keep them. But I might do something like go in here and say ask, Cindy.live, which I bet you should probably register that, Cindy, if you don't like it. But I like to keep it something that you can just shoot real quickly, like just say ask Cindy.live, and you'll see that, like, for me it's ask office hours .live or .global. Now in here, I can do a lot of things. Like I can start to play with, how these different things look to, flowers or circles. I can also decide what the error correction is. As I start to build it, I can change the shape of these so that I can make them, a variety of different things. So, I don't have an image to put on it, but I can put an image on it and so on and so forth. So, I can give it a little bit of a, I can play with the look in a lot of ways. That I used to use QR Factory, but they just didn't innovate very much on the look. And I have a lot of clients that don't want their QR codes to look like everybody else's QR codes. So one of the nice things about having the URL is that, remember, that a lot of people might be listening. They may not be able to get to their phone fast enough, to get your URL. But if you have something like ask Cindy.live or ask Cindy, and I bet you if you do ask Cindy on Hover, you'll have 80 options, and you just pick one of them that is easy to roll out, that rolls off your tongue, and it's easy to say. And now what's going to happen is, as they watch it over and over and over again, they'll get used to the idea that it's just ask Cindy blah, blah, blah. And they're not going to, the QR code is still useful, but it's not necessary. And so I like to have both of those, and I put that right over top of the QR code. So if you see like the ask office hours.global, not for this show, but for the other show, that you can ask those questions. That's a QR code that's generated from the system, and it's got the little logo in the center. It's got the URL across the top, but I make them all. I just make them for every show. Clients think it's great. They're like, "Wow, you can make a URL," and you're like, "Yeah, I can make a URL." so anyway, I know how to use Hover. So I think that's that's what I use, and I'm pretty happy with it. And then again, because it's your URL, you can always redirect it, and you own the whole system. Like you can pull data, you can do anything you want with that. How many people hit it, how many people redirect it, how many people, like, all that data is yours. From the get-go. It takes a little bit more work, but it gives you a lot more control.
One. I just bought Ask Cindy .live. So if you want that now, Cindy, it'll be $1,000. No, Alex is right. There's lots of domain names. You'll find one that would work for you if you.
It's because you can't use it as Cindy.live anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Because that'll come to extra hours. So, all right, we've got to the end. Content recommendations. Guy, what have you got?
I was at this event with Oliver and John Illison last week of the Alliance for Community Media. And while I was there, there was the Teradek booth, the LiveView booth. We were in the Mimo Live booth. But the one that really shocked me was hearing a little insight as to how the LiveView private 5G works with Pente Network. So at the inauguration, they had sold all these SIM cards that you could put inside. And there's a YouTube video. I'm going to put a link in the chat to it. It's just called LiveView at the Democratic National Convention. And there's also a blog post on this. And it's very interesting to see how this is done, because what happened when the moment that Trump started talking at the inauguration, the bandwidth fell to about 200K. They watched it on the back end as 200K to 9 modems on the LU800. But for those 60 or so people that had this other modem, they had this dedicated line that was brought in. And so this is what's going on over at Teradek as well. You can get these SIMs for big enough events that basically you're able to go a mile within that venue. And the antenna, there's a picture of it in this video here, but it's not very big. So that when they're setting these things up, it's not very big. So it's interesting content to go and take a look at. There's a blog post. as well as a video that has this guy Dan here talking about how they set it all up, and it's really cool content for those of us geeky enough to want to know how to get around and maneuver in some of these venues that may have bandwidth that is just nothing when everybody's there.
And what channel was that again? What channel was
This
it on?
is the Live View TV YouTube channel,
Okay.
and here's the link. I'm dropping in chat.
Awesome. All right, Alex, what have you got?
So I don't know what you were doing Saturday night. I showed a little bit of this from. I won't go through the whole thing here, but this is what I was doing. I was the only cotton top I think in the crowd, so anyway, but this is a band called this is the lead singer ran into the audience, and so that's the lead singer playing away there. It was a fun moment. I shot that in Grant. I owe that to you to send. I meant to send it to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I have that in Vision Pro. I shot it in stereo in spatial. But the band's called Flip Turn, and it's a really good band. My daughter and I we trade when we drive. She'll play a song, then I play a song, then she plays a song, and usually she plays a new song. Not always, but a lot of times she plays a new song, and then I think of an old song that's like the new song. So she'll play something and I'll play something, and she'll play something. Like she was playing something from this band, and I was like, oh, they sound like Stone Roses. So then I play a Stone Roses song for her, and then she's learning old stuff and I'm learning new stuff. And so we went to see Flip Turn. It wasn't particularly expensive. And so I have kind of a top limit of about $75, and this was not that much. But I won't pay more than $75 for a concert ticket. I'm just like done with that world. So this was about 2,000 people. But the music's really good. And so I've gotten kind of hooked on it. I'm listening to them a lot more. So Flip Turn is my content recommendation for today.
If only there was a way you could go to cinemas and, for a cheaper concert ticket, you could watch.
I mean,
really
but you'd have to make it worth it. You'd have to wire up hundreds of them, like 300 or 400 of them at one time, and you get like 80,000, maybe.
And who would be crazy enough to do that?
Maybe 81,438 seats. If you did it right. So anyway, that would be great, wouldn't it?
It would be great. Very good. All right, Nigel, what have you got?
Okay, so I'm going to go a completely different way. I was surfing through Amazon Prime trying to find something to watch that didn't horrify me or bore me. And I discovered a series which I did not know about called Brassic, Brassic, which is flint, meaning skint or, paw. English series started in 2019. It's 6 seasons in. This is not one for your children unless they're adult children, but it's a black comedy set in Lancashire about a bunch of young guys who, let's say, they have they steal things. But it's great. It's well written. It's well acted. There's quite a lot of language in it, and you may need subtitles if you're not used to the Lancashire accent, but if you like that sort of dark humor, it's really terrific.
Oh, there you go. See, well, that's a good recommendation. I like a good British comedy.
Now, I have a question for Nigel. Do you like slow horses? Did you enjoy slow horses?
I do. I love slow horses. The problem is it's a family divided because my wife does not like the structure of it. I love it. She's much more linear in her entertainment. I'm much more, you can go random and non-linear on me. I think it's great. And I think it's, I think that Apple's doing a bunch of good stuff, but I think slow horses and a lot of Apple's production quality comes out of the fact that they've got this huge industry in the UK that does these much more dense dramas, and I think they're getting the benefit. And the great example, I think, is Slow Horses is a great example of that.
Very good. Well, thank you, Nigel, particularly because it's an hour later than you're used to now, right?
It's
You've
way
moved.
past my bedtime.
Yeah,
Way
that's
past
right.
my bedtime.
And you thought you said yes to it after having done office hours this morning as well. So you're bookending your day just like Alex. So you've taken it for the team. Appreciate it.
12 hours in this chair. I need to get up.
Yeah, makes sense. You should have got up between the shows. That would have made sense. Thank you, Alex. Good to have Guy
Good to be
and
here.
Alex back again. It was fun. Special thank you to Robert, Alan, Peter, Taylor, and Jeff, who are all making things happen on the back end there and messing around with Vector and fine-tuning things and developing skills in that, which is equally as important, if not more important, than whatever we're talking about in the content. So it's an excuse to play around with this and get used to it. So thank you. And thank you to the questions that we had. We did miss a couple. We pushed them back. And so you can decide whether you copy and paste that back into office hours for tomorrow morning, or if you leave it there ready to push through again next week for us. And we'll do this all again at 6 o'clock on Monday night. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Night.